Be Not Afraid. I'm Carrie Bartholomew, otherwise known as Cara Marcel, and I lift the voices of those people who are doing hard things when it is not necessarily the easiest thing to do. Today, my guest is no different. It's Robert B. Davis. He was a student of counseling, mental health. He wanted to become a counselor, and he found some things that he couldn't agree with and couldn't agree with pushing on to other people. And so he found himself in a hard situation. So I will let him tell you the rest of his story and we will get into our discussion. I do these as often as I can in the middle of the day, and then I do evening commentary discussing right now The Devil and Karl Marx. So I hope you will like, share, and subscribe for more content. Thank you, Robert. I'm so glad to have you.
Thanks for having me, Carrie. Yeah, it's been several years, but I wanted to become a counselor. I was working in the therapy field as like day support, basically working with people who were in therapy, and enjoyed it. Felt like I was good at it, and went to school, and then the first semester, just started all the intro classes and whatnot, and I was aware of social justice being around, especially in education spaces. So I was seeing it as it was coming up and being aware of it, which sort of put me on my guard. And then at the end of the first semester, each class had a section, a social justice section, and what sort of set the whole thing in motion was the entire approach of the class changed from check out this theory, read about it, discuss what you like, discuss what you don't like, critique, accept, praise, evaluate it for yourself, essentially, and think about the theory itself. That was our approach with all the other things we were introduced to. And then it switched to social justice. And there was absolutely none of that. It wasn't even, let's introduce the theory first. It was just, okay, social justice, tell us how you will be a social justice practitioner. And I was...
So you said it switched. So when you first came into the program, it actually was discussing, and do you agree, do you not agree, allowing more welcoming points of view?
Not with social justice. It was doing that with the other things that we could, so counseling disciplines. So Freudian, Adlerian, personal psychology, whatever. In any of the theories of counseling, you were asked to study them, think about them, and either accept or reject pieces or the whole thing. So you were free to engage as a, autonomous thinking being with all these theories. But then when we switched to the social justice section, there was none of that. And it was, for social justice, you will practice this. Now say back to us and tell us how you will practice it.
So many people think that justice means one thing, and it oftentimes, in my opinion, when I say social justice, I call it social injustice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But can you explain what social justice meant in your program?
Yeah, I'm using it in a very broad, just colloquial way of people say social justice and they think that thing. It could be called many other things. It could be critical race theory, critical theory in general, various types of Marxist theory, cultural Marxism. But basically, the core of it is where we're evaluating people, or every interaction and our interactions with people are primarily evaluated through a power oppression lens. And usually there's race tied in there. And you need to include also intersectionality. So it's just this meeting of these forces, and it's framed as, how do we help the poor little victims? And you can give really obvious examples of people who are victims. And there are people in the world who need help. So that's the Mott and Bailey, that's the bait and switch. They give you the obvious good thing. The term social justice, I think, originally comes out of Christianity. There's an idea of social justice in Christian practice and teaching. So again, it depends on clarifying the word. But in the modern context, it's a Marxist / postmodern amalgam that is bent on just getting particular practice in place, getting people to do this particular thing, think in this certain way, and just sort of spit out the right thoughts and fight against the right people.
When you decided to sign up for this program in the very beginning, when you're looking at your course syllabus, was there anything that was kind of a red flag, or did you jump in believing that you were going to something that you could fully engage with and support?
Somewhere in between the two. I had done a good amount of talking to people who were recent graduates and practitioners, and I had looked into my options. My goal had been to become a Jungian analyst, but you need to go through and get licensure first, and then after that, there's other things to do that. So I needed licensure as either LCPC or LCSW, licensed professional counselor, or um, licensed clinical social worker. And I looked into the social work side. You could also do doctorate, but I didn't want to do doctorate. I just wanted to go into practice as soon as possible. But social worker side was way more influenced by the social justice stuff, as I could see. And so my goal was to get to the area with the least amount of it, because there's not a none option really.
Wow.
So I went to the counseling role, and the in the curriculum, in the syllabus, in the handbook and whatnot, there is boilerplate social justice language, which isn't surprising. But I write about this a little bit. I tell a story. The professor who interviewed me for the program on the admissions, she asked me to define culture and social justice in the interview process, which kind of surprised me. And so I didn't know what to do. So I was like, okay, I'll just start by defining culture. And I defined culture and paused. And then she moved on as though I had defined social justice. And I was like, okay.
How did you define culture?
I don't remember exactly, but it was something like culture is a like two-part phenomenon, something that you might classify as like super ego material, stuff that's put on you from what you inherit. And then later on, you can go and sort of choose parts of your own and reject the old. So something in the ballpark of stuff you inherit and stuff you choose in your life.
So when I think of culture, I generally think of the foods we eat, the ways in which we celebrate things, our family traditions, those kind of things, right? And those are kind of the people that I try to speak to, trying to get parents. And I think that that's why they adopt ideas like multiculturalism. It's beautiful to learn about other people's cultures.
Yeah.
And I think that they don't understand that when that comes into school, it's heavily loaded with things like what you can cast off. So I find that very interesting.
Yeah, I think it's kind of a meme at this point, but it's really most of the people who are excited about multiculturalism and stuff really just mean they like Indian food.
Right, like, that fits really well.
I mean, that's what it is. Oh, I want various restaurants around me.
Right.
Like, cool. No one has a problem with that. That's not what we're talking about.
Right. But that is the Trojan horse that brings it.
Yes. Yes.
So the same thing with, I want my kids to read about these certain books and to understand, even to understand things like internment camps. Mm-hmm. Like, people want to know those kind of things. And I don't think there's anything wrong with understanding them. Those are parts of our history.
Yeah.
But I don't think one of the things that in social justice that I see often is that there's always a goal to dismantle. Mm-hmm. So it's never a let's praise this, let's celebrate this thing in culture. It's only, but we wouldn't have been treated this bad if the big bad white man didn't say something or do something.
Right. Yeah. So it's the veneer is diverse foods, but the core of it is eroding the fabric of Western civilization.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What does that mean in the most? And I know you're very academic. I've listened
Yeah.
probably to 3 of your podcasts, and I'm like, oh, he's a smart one. So, but what does that mean in the most simple, eroding Western civilization?
Yeah. Well, it means, in the most simple and practical terms, it means learning by targeted empathy and by um, guilt manipulation, emotional manipulation, learning uh, to question. Oh, and they also abuse humility too, because you're like, oh, I want to be humble. I'm open to questioning. I'm open to learning. Right. So this humility, guilt, and empathy, all theoretically good things, but they're being manipulated. But pushing you to look at the historical past, our Western history, look at all the bad things, feel bad about it, wish it was different, and and get to the point where you aren't proud of anything. And you're just like, well, it's all kind of crappy, so it doesn't really matter what we do, where we go. It'd be better just to wipe the slate and start over. So it really just creating a distance, a lack of connection and pride between our cultural history and our future as a culture, and opening that door to, well, it would really be better to be something else.
Yeah, that reminds me of something that you recently said, which was nihilism. We're being groomed towards nihilism.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you've watched recently, but all of the people who are here for the World Cup in soccer, right? And everybody's like, oh, they love their French fries, they love our food, whatever. But one guy specifically said, in America, you have hope. And he's in the UK, and he said, we don't dream, because if we dream, people automatically say, well, that's stupid. And it does seem to me that that is something I'm watching in the classroom. I'll ask the kids, about culture, and they are tight-lipped, and I'm talking young kids. They're very tight-lipped on celebrating anything until I talk about culture. So I'll say, well, my culture is this. And, this is like my nationality plays a part in my culture, but not a huge part in my culture, because I don't even know all my nationality. I would just call myself American. What does it mean to be American? And like building that up. No, we have a culture, and that is grace, resilience, and grit. That's our culture. And like teaching them that, but you're constantly fighting, in my opinion, this uphill battle of every institution. And this is a thought that I had when you were saying that they were changing kind of the meaning, or they took something out of Christianity. That's entryism, right? Does that make sense?
Entryism, as in, I'm not familiar with the term.
Okay, so entryism is this idea that we need to play on your empathy. We need to, and I would use the term tactical empathy. So we need to play on your empathy. We need to make you feel that you're unkind if you don't give us access. And then we're going to fundamentally change it all on you.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So that's kind of how I look at it. And that's why I was wondering if it switched on you, if you came into school and all of a sudden it switched. And I do want to get into some of your thoughts on nihilism, but I really want to talk about, because I really, really try to focus on what young people will be facing, right? And so when you get into class, like, did you feel like you were abused in the classroom in terms of having to talk about things that were uncomfortable, or what was that like?
Well, I only lasted one semester, so
okay.
So I didn't have a lot of time for that.
And when was this?
University of Louisiana at Monroe, and it was online. So
It was all online. Okay.
yeah, I was states away. So
Okay.
so for the most part, everything was pretty good in the intro and whatnot. There wasn't much conflict. One story I will tell, which I still just find absolutely hilarious. We did an assignment where the teacher sent us a video without sound, and it was two people interacting, and so we were supposed to be looking at body language, learning about how that shows up and what it communicates. And it was from some TV show I wasn't familiar with, but there were two characters. One was a white guy and one was a black guy, and they were having a conversation, and we were supposed to describe the interaction. And I sit down to write it and think about it, and I just start typing, the white guy said, or the black guy said, and there's a little thing in me where I'm like, is that going to be a problem? But I was like, how else? That's what I'm going to describe. So I just like, okay, whatever. Write it up, refer to the one guy as the white guy, the other guy as the black guy, and post it. And then I go and look through everybody else in the class posts. So probably another 20 posts or so. 0 people referred to the white people and the white guy and the black guy. One student said the man who spoke first and the man who spoke second. And it's like, are we going to sit there and remember who spoke first? That's how we're like, you can tell they're avoiding the issue.
Right.
And one person said this, and this one made me laugh, the man with glasses. And I was like, okay, yes, it's true. The black guy has glasses.
Right.
But that's not the first thing that we see. Like he's a black guy and a white guy. And theoretically, here's the thing. Theoretically, that's the whole social just thing. Oh, we're supposed to see race. We're supposed to be okay with talking about it. But in this class, which included black people and white people, no one was comfortable with just saying there's a white guy talking to a black guy. No one was comfortable with saying the words. Even though theoretically you're supposed to feel comfortable with that. That's what they say. And I just had to laugh when I saw how much people were going to avoid using that. It was ridiculous.
I find that way too. People will say, she has glasses. She sometimes has her hair up. And I'm like, it's okay.
Yeah.
You can literally say like that is a part of my character, or that's a part of who I am.
Right.
And to me, it's no different. And I guess it's just I don't want to call it a generation thing. I know we're supposed to, but I don't want to. To me, the color of my skin is not a whole lot different than the color of someone's eyes.
Right.
Now, do I happen to fit a bunch of those stereotypes? Sure. But that's a more nuanced conversation. Mm-hmm. If you're just describing someone, I want to say the tall person with the red hair, because it quickly lets you look around and go, oh, there he is.
Right.
Like you have to look at every single person. Oh, do they have brown hair? Oh, do they, it's awkward. And I think that therapists are supposed to be a person that you can connect with. And I think that being on the other side of this, I think that if I walked into a room and I thought the therapist was sizing me up for a bunch of things that were irrelevant to the conversation, I wouldn't want to have the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
So they're making a whole bunch of people who don't feel comfortable connecting with each other.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did it change your views? I mean, you were only there for a semester. So did it make you think differently about different people, about different races specifically?
No. I mean, I knew I was familiar with the, whatever you want to call it, the social justice rhetoric and approach and framework all beforehand. So I knew what they were going for, and I knew why I didn't agree. So I saw more of what I was hoping to avoid, but it didn't surprise me. And like I said, they didn't present it in a way that was actually particularly persuasive or challenging. It's not like they said, here are these studies, let's talk about this, and let's convince you of this. It was just a foregone conclusion. This is what we believe, and this is what you have to parrot. So there was nothing persuasive about it anyhow.
Did it seem like the instructors actually believed it, or that they were just going through the motions?
No, it seems they definitely weren't just paying lip service, because I tried several times to have a frank conversation with them, and it was just we can't engage on this level. We can't talk about this, ask these questions. So they were very much committed to holding the line. Whether they actually believe it in their heart, I don't know, but they were doing the enforcement thing and holding the line.
And were they minorities themselves?
One of them was a Black woman.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what happened that was your final breaking point?
Well, when they had the social justice unit and everything flipped, I was like, this is not okay. And I made a post of, I said, I will not engage in the academic religion of social justice. And I gave some reasons as to why I disagreed. And so then my professor said she wanted to discuss my concerns. And then she didn't want to discuss my concerns. She just wanted to convince me that I was in danger of wrongthink. And then I had another conversation early in the next semester that was a struggle session with the head of the department and my other two, or her and the other professor. So 3 professors. And then,
can you explain a struggle session? I do know what it is, but
yeah,
might not.
Yeah, it's comes out of, the term was used to describe what happened in communist China, where they would basically sit you down and emotionally abuse you, essentially, in order to get you to realize that you were a bad person and get back on the party line. It was part of the whole brainwashing and cultural revolution scheme. So the term is used to just denote when there's whatever established authority figures, professors, people who have the power to kick you out of school, sit you down, and they will, if you just listen to their words and you're not sort of aware of what's going on, then it might sound reasonable, but it's not a conversation. It's not a dialogue. It's a punishment session. So
it's a shaming session.
Yes, exactly. It's a shaming session. Yeah. So they just sat me down and said a bunch of things and said they wanted to hear from me. But when I brought up, quotes from our ethics textbook that supported what I was doing, they just completely ignored it. And anytime I tried to have a specific conversation, they just were like, well, brought it back to the fact that I was somehow unsafe and problematic and whatever.
Okay, so again, you're online. So the worst that you can do is use words. Mm-hmm. It's not like you're going to show up somewhere and be violent. Mm-hmm. And they're calling you unsafe.
Yeah, unsafe in the sense of unsafe to move forward towards becoming a counselor, that I wouldn't be safe for the practice, safe to help clients and be hospitable to them, welcoming.
Right. And I understand that. One of the things that I've recognized is what I would call safety culture.
Yeah.
A culture that says you shouldn't do this because it will be unsafe. Mm-hmm. And now we're saying that people can be unsafe for having different ideas.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So as people go through this program, is it like it tears you? First off, was this a religious institute? Was this a religious university? No. Okay. No. Okay. So probably the majority of people know exactly what they're getting into, you'd think? Okay. So basically activists are getting into therapy.
Yeah. I mean, I think I don't want to speak poorly of the cohort I was with. I didn't see any of the other students like dogpiling on me or participating in it. I think there are plenty of people who go in um, and do just want to help people, but you have the issue that the institutions are captured, and in order to get through them, you have to go through the social justice retraining and mindset enforcement and all that. And then you also have, I mean, it's a graduate program, so that means the people who are going into it went through undergrad, and if you go through undergrad, pretty much the same thing is the by and large the status quo is you're getting the social justice attempted transformation at least. So there was one girl. I must have said something like only mildly controversial. I don't remember what it was, but just not explicitly liberal. But that's what I mean by controversial. It's just
Sure.
Slightly outside the liberal norm. And one of the girls said, I'm really glad that I'm a liberal because I can tell if I wasn't a liberal how unwelcoming it would be here, or like how like she wasn't mad about anything. She wasn't
Right.
calling out. She was just saying,
No, it actually sounds like she's standing up for you. I mean,
yeah,
kind of. But go ahead. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
No. She just that was it. She just commented. She could tell how unilateral the thrust in the atmosphere was.
So we have this thing in our schools, and I should have brought it up, but it's called Safe and Welcoming Schools. And the goal is to push LGBTQIA plus everything through schools, to prioritize that as the focus. So, but again, those words, safe. You are only a safe person if you endorse these ideas.
Right.
So where does that leave a person who desperately needs therapy for other reasons? What are they going to get out of going to a therapist?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on the therapist. I know there are some good ones out there, but I would guess, on average, just grab bag, you're going to get, if you have unsafe thoughts and that's enough of, what's going on that you start talking about that in a therapy session, they are going to coach you, confront you. So that's confrontation is a therapeutic tool. It's listed. I was looking back through, as I've been doing these interviews, I was looking back through our material. It's listed in our book on counseling. Confrontation. It means challenging something the client has said, right? Challenging their views, their values, their worldview, their experience in some way. That is a recognized therapeutic tool. However, as the counseling profession has now been co-opted, there are certain ways you absolutely cannot direct that confrontation. So it's completely okay and even almost mandatory if you have, a privileged client, a white client of any kind. You are basically any confrontation that you do would be justified in this lens. If you are the privileged counselor with the minority client, it is, and this was that wheel that you brought up in one of your recent podcasts. Then you have to be very wary about using confrontation.
So you've seen the wheel in your program?
No, I saw it on your video,
Okay.
But it's a visual of what they were talking about. So the principles were there without the visual.
One of the things that I have noticed is that it is almost a given, it seems, that when women go to therapy, they're going to end up divorced. It really does seem like it, especially if your husband is a white male. It is constantly their problem. How could they possibly say that? They're a terrible human being. You're wonderful. They're terrible. Yeah. And it takes two sides. So I don't know if you know this about me, but I grew up in the foster system and aged out of foster care. And I had a therapist that whole time. So I'm actually extremely pro good therapy.
Okay.
Because by the time I turned 18, my therapist was able to say, go and be well. You
Yeah.
don't need me. You
Mhm.
know, and there have been other times that I did feel that I needed, you know, a check-in with the therapist for a short amount of time. But one of the things that parents hear a lot is, well, your child's going to be a lifelong patient. That seems antithetical to therapy, because I thought therapy had an end game.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you can argue historically, for example, uh, psychotherapy, depth psychology were things that would be much longer lasting. And then somewhat more modern things like behavioral therapy focused on more heavily on outcomes and demonstrable improvement. So there has been some back and forth in terms of the length, but I think the main change is that uh, once upon a time we believed that there was something called a healthy human being, and now we have no definitive definition of what a healthy, thriving person is. And so the idea that you could be a lifelong patient is now compatible with the idea that you're living your best life while being a lifelong therapy patient.
Yeah, I recently saw something that was with young people, and it said, you don't need to be sick or have a problem to go to therapy. Therapy helps you be the best version of yourself.
Right. Which could be true under some interpretations, but it's it's a similar thing. It's not just the language; it's the culture and what that leads to, the atmosphere of and their goals really. Um, and and part of that is part we have part of that because we have lost community and multi-generational family ties where, I mean, it's helpful to have a wise older person in your life.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's sort of an opening slot there for, well, theoretically, a therapist could fill that slot, but now other things have shifted, and what a therapist is, for the most part, is not the wiser older person who you would want to be in your life in that way. So it's not really, it could be marketed as that sort of wise mentor, which is a good thing, but that's also not what therapists are in general.
Have you heard of the term adultism?
I'm sure I've heard it at some point, but it's been a while, and I think I can guess what it is. But just go ahead and
It means that you're looking at that lens of oppressed and oppressor.
right,
A child is by definition oppressed
right,
because somebody tells them what to do.
yeah, yeah. Well, so that there's so many things off of this, but one would be um, something that has bothered me over the last several years is how negative people, like, oh, adulting is terrible.
Right.
That attitude has become very rampant, and a lot of people say it as a joke, but it's one of those things where it's like it's so common that, is it a joke, and how much is that seeping into your mindset of like, oh, my life, all the responsibilities I have, um, and it's a really dismal view of the rest of your life. It's like, well, once upon a time childhood was magical and great, and now
Oh my goodness, that's good.
adulthood is terrible. And then not separate from that, but in addition to that, there's the issue of the goals. And I mean, to be radical and blunt about it, the reason why they're pushing that is because if you have a separation between adults and kids, then you can't um, have sex with kids. So
No, you're right. Yesterday, I interviewed my friend who exposes what's in books and
right,
why that's being, thrown in front of the kids, and it absolutely is. And somebody, I actually shared a graphic of an adult taking a child by the hand into a bedroom, and you know what's going to happen. And they're like, well, this is Trump's America. And I'm like, when did protecting kids become political? The magical and great, and this is where I really wanted to talk to you about it, because the beauty of childhood, the magic of childhood, is being replaced with kind of a hopelessness, and a lot of people don't see it because on this service, on this surface, um, I live in Utah,
Mhm.
super patriotic, raise those flags, and so fifth grade they have like a statewide celebration of America. But underneath, the kids are still taught that the founding fathers maybe weren't the best.
Right.
Maybe there were issues. Columbus, especially, bad guy,
Yeah.
right? Um, and so I'm wondering what that does to the child's mental health, because I'm watching young people, 19 years old, say, I want to get on disability for my mental health because I shouldn't have to work.
Yes.
What?
Yeah.
What happened? And I feel like a lot of it has happened in the last sort of years, where we have had this massive push to normalize mental health.
Right. Right. Yeah. Well, it's been going. It's a slow increase and then exponential increase. I'll tell you a couple things from um, my childhood, because I went to public schools in the late 90s, early 2000s. And when I just in the last couple of years was looking back through boxes that my mom had from a long time ago, and I found a little art project that I did, and I must have been third or fourth grade, fifth grade at most. And basically, it was a little um, like interactive wheel that was like a few comic strip sections that tell a story. And
Mhm.
the story that I drew was these invasive plant aliens who were coming and polluting the atmosphere. And so I was worried about climate change.
Oh, wow.
And I mean, I knew
Yeah.
that I was worried about that throughout my life. That was a big part of my journey, but I didn't realize that I was drawing it in art as a third or fourth grader.
Right.
And so this was, I mean, not within the last 15 years of even escalating hysteria. And another one you mentioned, uh, alluding to something we said on another podcast, but that I look somewhat ethnic, somewhat not white. And I actually, I have always gotten that. But when I was younger, I was so happy about that
Okay.
because I could plausibly pass as not white. Right.
Wow.
My best friend was half Mexican, and he always wanted to be Hawaiian. Right. He wanted to pass
I
as
can see
Hawaiian.
it.
And me, I was like, I'm happy to pass as half Mexican. Heck yeah. I'm not white. Right. And
How
so,
sad.
right. Yeah. So, and you can pass some of that off on just a kid, you know,
I think that
wanting
if a
to get
child
different.
looks in a mirror, first off, we look in the mirror and we see things. I look in the mirror and I'm like, oh, not the same person I was 20 years ago, right?
Yeah. Mhm.
But but for a child to not simply believe, you know, I love my freckles. like
Right.
like to
Right.
not be built up, and to have this thing that is sewn into them somewhere,
Mhm.
because
Yeah.
there's no reason you should look at your skin and go, I don't like it. And
Right.
I've seen it. When my son was very little, he and his best friend, my son's second generation biracial. This
Mhm.
little boy was first, so he's more of my skin tone.
Mhm.
They're in the bathtub, and my son and this little guy, they're playing with toys, and Dante looks up at Liam and he goes, Liam, you're you're pink, or he goes, or my son goes, Dante, you're brown. And Dante looks at him and he goes, yeah. And
No.
I just, like, you see this in a 3-year-old. And
Mhm.
he felt like this. And my son looks at him, he goes, that's okay. I'm pink, except for when I'm cold, then I'm purple. And that is healthy, right?
Right.
Like when they're little, that's healthy. Why take that away from them?
Right.
And
Right.
why? Can you explain that? Why are we taking that away from children? It's taking away their confidence.
Yeah. I mean, I could probably take a stab at it. It would sound kind of crazy, but
I don't care.
uh, well, I think we're moving. You know, at one point we thought we were moving towards the
Melting
everybody's
pot.
skin color's okay world, metaphorically colorblind world, but now we're moving back towards the focus on your race and rank races by their worth, because there's some vested desire somewhere for a race war.
I agree. I watching the last month, the stuff with the Metcalf and Anthony
Oh yeah.
has been just like, how in the world? But then I believe Robin DiAngelo at some point said, I have no answers for biracial families. And I started watching people start to say things like, you're a traitor if you're intermarried.
Mm-hmm.
And it, it was shocking to me because I
Right.
just, if we know history, we know what other people have been through to get us to a point where we can,
Mm-hmm.
be the content of our character. However, sometimes that's the ugliest part of us.
Mm.
So,
Yeah. Yeah.
So you moved from, and I've already asked you beforehand. So you moved from out of therapy and into schools.
Mm-hmm.
What made you make that choice?
Well, I was kind of adrift because the counseling route dried up, and the sort of working in the positions I was in before, low level day treatment stuff, was it's a lot harder. I mean, there's a reason. I learned this, and I would say this: there's a reason why therapists see their clients once or twice a week, not every day for 8 hours or more, because it's really taxing. It's not something you can easily do long term, and it's also not as well paid, and et cetera, et cetera. So, and then with the distaste for that came with the disappointment of the program and not getting where I wanted to go. So I was like, okay, I need to go somewhere else. And I got a sort of mentorship role at a community college, but that was on a federal grant, and then federal grant, and then that actually got cut like a month after I got the job, and so that job went away too. And then my church was starting a school the following year, and so it kind of, and I had heard them talking about it, and I had thought about it, and so it kind of lined up timing wise, and I was also interested, so I was able to get into that position, and it turns out to be a really good fit. So,
And so are you teaching classical education?
classical Christian education, yes. So both the classical model and then overtly Christian.
Okay. Um, I'm always interested in what is the antidote, because when you are intentionally infusing, when you're prioritizing things that will divide families, I know many families who are in situations where they censor themselves within their own homes.
Right. Yeah.
Because all of this garbage is pushed into social justice, and their child is an activist, and they or not an activist, broken by this stuff, well, my school says this and my family says this and my school says that they're right because they're the smarter people and I need to trust them. And this kind of, I don't have another word in my vocabulary than abusive. It seems to me that this is mentally really just rendering families, shredding them. And that is the goal, right? I mean,
Yes.
if you go all the way back, and I don't care about sounding crazy, if you go all the way back to like the communist schools of the 1950s,
Yeah.
rending families was an issue, was one of their things.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that was the direction I was thinking back at the beginning, where you're like, oh, you're very academic, like let's bring it down to earth level. But unfortunately, the devil's hidden up in the books,
Yes.
and it's back there. And you really, I mean, to really understand what's going on, you need to understand the long march through the institutions, and you need to understand the depths of the communist mindset and the core of that. It takes a lot to sort of build up to, but the communists understand that their sorry, I should say, like, communist theorists understand that their model is not compatible with human beings. They know that communism doesn't work.
Yeah.
But their solution to that is to say we need a new kind of human. And so we need to remake humans. And so therefore we need to take over the schools, brainwash the people. We can't have families because families would pull your allegiance elsewhere and might tell you things we don't want you to tell them. So we want to make everyone's allegiance towards us and remake humanity so that we can then have the communism we want that we know we can't have right now with the people that we have right now. So it sounds crazy. You wouldn't think that someone would think that, but that is literally,
it's at every level. Like you've got social and emotional learning, which I'm constantly raising that flag, going, don't go there, because that's teaching a new generation to be allegiant to the state. And honestly, I think it goes one level deeper and horrifying, and that is contempt. We're literally teaching kids to have contempt for the people who don't think exactly like them.
Yeah.
No. So, but now I'm watching where they're aiming it towards grandparents. How do we get these ideas into people who are already out of the education? Because we also offered all sorts of like free programs or very, very low programs to get your kids into colleges. There's a reason. It's not generosity. The reason is to get people who are obedient to the state. Michelle Obama put school counselors into schools and said the goal is to make them social justice change makers. Yeah. So, and that was 11 years ago now. Right. So all of this, and then we have policies being made, mobile mental health clinics. Come get in my car where I'll teach. It's creepy. Yeah. So, but I do think the other thing is that they are so good at the language. Again, with the entryism, they make words that make a parent say, "What are you talking about? You said this. You said that your father has a hard time believing this stuff is here."
Yeah.
Do you want to expand on any of that?
I mean, I would just say that a lot of people, I'm sure, are used to it, but it causes family drama of like, we don't see things the same way, and that gets back to what you were talking about when you said what's the solution, and you have families rending apart. And I just thought, well, if you take Jesus's words, he said, "I, the truth," right? The truth is come to split families apart. He says, fathers will be against sons, sons against their fathers. And, that's not that he's happy about that, but that's, if you take his words, "I am the way, the truth, the life." So the truth splits apart families. You will split over issues of truth. And unfortunately, but you should split over truth. That is a value to live and die for, and supersedes even family. So, I mean, the solution is the truth, but there's all sorts of different forms that can take.
Yeah, I was thinking about this, having a young adult in my family and going, there may be a point where you cannot keep a job if you don't keep your head down and your mouth shut.
Yeah.
That very well, I think we're facing it. But if you have one person who you can look to who is just unashamedly saying, put me in jail. Like I'm going to stand for truth, whatever it is whatever you bring at me, In Utah, we have what I would call a mental crippling, um, based on the recent assassination.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people are absolutely paralyzed to, well, also there's a ton of people who believe all sorts of whatever, anything that's thrown at them, But I do think that there are people who are scared, who are genuinely petrified to speak. And I think censorship is the first place where you give into apathy.
Yeah.
And apathy, again, just in I heard your conversation with Leslie, I think last week, maybe the week before, and I was on a road trip with my son, and we started talking about nihilism. And I would love to just take the last 10 minutes and just have you explain what's going on with nihilism in your view.
Yeah. Well, apathy is a good way to put it. Apathy is the behavioral, maybe emotional state, and nihilism is the philosophy behind it. So you might not know that you're feeling the effects of nihilism. You might not know that you're living life as a nihilist, but if a large part of your character can be characterized as apathetic, you're probably living out some form of nihilism. And nihilism technically is, you could argue different academic stuff, but
when I talk to my students, I say burn it all down.
Yeah. Well, so
you have an attitude of burn it all down.
Right. Okay. But the problem there is people say nihilism means belief in nothing, but then burn it down is a belief in something, right? And so it's not clear how it connects on the surface, but nihilism is more strictly, because you can't operationally believe in nothing, right? That would mean I don't believe that I'm going to be able to hold this glass. Like literally nothing would be reliable and true if you really believed in nothing. So that's actually not how we can function. So what nihilism plays out as is some kind of moral relativism. There is no truth. There's my truth. And then the result of nihilism is either, well, usually first depression, right? Because everything's meaningless, worthless, and everything sucks too. So it's like,
yeah,
things are bad and they're meaningless. So I'm suffering pointlessly.
And then I'm going to go to therapy because I'm depressed.
Yes. Yeah.
And
to my therapist who's a nihilist. Yeah. So that's the general, like, stop number one on the train. And then a good amount of people will not stay depressed forever because it's easier, or it's more comfortable to be angry than it is to be depressed. And if you're a nihilist, then you think, well, really anyone telling me not to be angry, disruptive, destructive, etc., is saying stuff that doesn't mean anything. It all amounts to nothing in the end. So I'm just going to be angry and lash out. So it leads to depression, and then depression in many people won't last forever, and people would rather be angry than depressed. So then they will just chaotically explode and tear things down and burn it all down. Right. And so there's
dismantle societies. This is how people become activists.
Yeah.
And it also gives them a new purpose, right? Because
right, exactly. So that's the next piece of the puzzle is, it's the old cliche of you have to believe in something or you'll fall for nothing. Because you can't actually live as a nihilist, when you have this empty worldview, then anything that comes along that looks shiny and purposeful and promising is, oh my gosh, that's your new savior. And so the nihilists are easy prey for the utopians. Oh, we have this social program that's going to make the world a better place. and now you get to be a good person on the side of the good thing, and so they can sell you a worldview, even though, oh, I'm a nihilist, but now you realize it sucks to be a nihilist, so you'd rather have anything rather than nothing. So now you're on whatever worldview comes knocking, and then the utopians, communist utopians who need to remake the world, they want a bunch of people ready to tear stuff down because they need everything torn down because they need to look like the better option than what is going on now. And again, these are all things that they themselves literally say. James Lindsay goes through a lot of that, but
yeah. No, what I have found interesting is I'm watching DSA followers post, and they're like, how specifically can we reach these people who don't want to let us reach them? How can we change our language to be more relevant to them?
Mm-hmm.
That's again where safety comes from. Every single person wants to feel safe. Mm-hmm. We operate in a way of, I want to know that my family is safe, right? And so that they can take the language and they can change it. But I've also sat on calls with people in different kind of bridge building groups where they will openly say, I'm a nihilist. And I'm like, why would I want to be anything like that?
Yeah.
But it's because they're robbed of hope. And what I also find a lot, I'm reading the book The Devil and Karl Marx right now.
Oh, nice.
And there is, and also we just finished, my son and I just read The Man Who Was Thursday.
Oh, I haven't read that.
Oh, it's excellent. It's a phenomenal book written in like 1908.
Right.
But he goes on this long monologue about nihilism. And they're like, oh no, it's not that we don't care about anything. It's that we have an intention of killing everything, including God, including the idea of right and wrong. We hate even the idea of right and wrong. And it's presented and repackaged as we are enlightened because we hate right and wrong. And we just want your children to be truly educated, to be truly enlightened. We want you to come to our therapy to be truly enlightened, to understand your true self. And it's it's alarming because I just don't know people who are coming out the other end happy.
Yeah. And that's only, one part of it. There's all sorts of stuff with the medications that go into being a therapy patient and whatnot. And there was trigonometry podcast of a doctor who talked about the SSRIs and lack of evidence and stuff. That was really great. So there's all sorts of stuff.
Okay, well, we're wrapping up, and I like to end right at the hour. So how can people follow you? How can they support you? Yeah.
Right now, you can find me on Substack and YouTube, and the support that I'm asking for now is just sharing content. I do have books available on Amazon. Purpose in Form, The Necessary Basis of All Ethics is the main one. That's a philosophy book for those who are interested. But the main thing would be watch videos on my channel, do the annoying thing of having to scroll back into past stuff that's not being recommended to you, and watch those and read stuff on my Substack.
And one of the things that you said was defund the fun police, and that's geared towards young people.
That's more of a accessible project that I'm working on. Defund the fun police. That's on my Substack. If you're on the web page version of it, it should have its own section that it's posted as a serial, and it's a part memoir reflection of how, because I grew up right ahead of social justice and sort of looking back and learning, oh, that's that weird stuff that was going on in schools right behind me as I was graduating out of them. And so seeing how people's sort of behavior changed and whatnot, that's all recorded.
And where did you go to school?
Northern California, Bay Area.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's how
Yeah.
that's how you were exposed to it that early, because I've only seen it, well, I didn't see it. I mean, before 2020, I thought I would literally walk into a classroom and tell my teachers, "You guys are totally in charge of my kid. I am just here to be your
Mm.
support, whatever I could do." And then my son's like sixth grade, "Mom, cisgender means comfortable in skin." What? I never even heard that. So
Yeah.
and so I understand why parents don't understand. Again, thank you so much for coming on and having this conversation with me. I'm sorry that you had to go through that process, but I'm glad that you did, because we need people to talk about it.
Yeah.
So, anyways, thank you. I hope you have a wonderful day.
Thank you. You too.
Bye.